right. Everybody was out drinking last night, I hope, maybe. Is it a Tuesday? What day is today? Merger, the convergence of quantum computing and artificial intelligence. But before we get started, we have some secrets that are gonna happen, and I can't really in that popularity. It was on the cover of Time magazine a couple of weeks ago. And also, Japan, the nation of Japan, took out a global commercial campaign with a 30-second or minute spot on their announcement that will be coming later this year of one of the world's largest superconducting quantum computers called Quantum for All. It's an amazing commercial. It's all over YouTube. I'm sure it's easy for you to find. We live in the greatest time to be alive in the history of mankind. We are on the verge of a technological evolution that is unparalleled. Quantum computing and artificial intelligence are going to drive us into a completely new future. And computing, as we know it, will change more in the next 100 years, in the next 10 years, than it has in the last 100. Note what I just said in that little mistake. It'll be important later. We'll be looking at more of the utopian stuff. We're going to talk about all of the impacts of this stuff, talk about what quantum computing is, talk about what AI is, talk about the effects of them, talk about the mergers and all the good and bad that can come out of it. And what I hope you get out of this talk, split the atom for horrible destructive purposes. We've split the atom to create nuclear power plants. And now we're effectively splitting the atom to introduce new computational technologies to the world. So not everybody is probably familiar with quantum computing, so I'll tell you a little bit about it. Quantum computing, qubits, where you take an electron and you cool it down, or ion traps where you suspend them with lasers. There's dozens of ways, literally, with which you can make a quantum computer. And they're in their infancy, but they're advancing really fast. When we started StrangeWorks in 2018, and I gave the keynote here, IBM had 17 qubits a few months before the talk. A few months later, there was 50, and then Google had 72. Now, what is a qubit? A qubit is effectively the quantum version of a bit. And so why is it so powerful? You know, how does it really come into play? Well, 4 bits, I have 16 outcomes, and I can be in any one of those outcomes at the same time. But if I have 4 quantum bits, I can be in all 16 outcomes at the same moment in time. What this means is that exponential speed up in compute power for certain specific tasks. It's not going to make the YouTube videos faster, or your Elder Scrolls or whatever games you play. It's going to help not, improve drug discovery by a little bit, but by a lot. It's going to efficient batteries. It's going to help with changing the world and potentially eventually fixing the environment and things that I hope everyone here is concerned with. Qubit, I have 2 to the n the number of bits. So it's really, really fascinating. Talk about the future, so I'm going to go through the backgrounds kind of fast. Well, there's a few ways that we use them today. We use them for quantum simulation. If you wanted to take something like a caffeine molecule and you wanted to simulate that caffeine molecule, you would need so much memory. It would be, one, ridiculously expensive, larger orders of magnitude the size of this room. However, you could do that same function and build a digital twin of a caffeine molecule in 160 qubits. To put that into perspective, Whurley has a 433 qubit machine available now, and we'll be announcing later this year, as they publicize on the roadmap, a 1200 qubit machine. Well, think about it. If nature is quantum mechanical, and we're trying to modify, these different molecular structures, don't we need a computer based on those to do that? Examples of how that's already been working in things like peptide design and research on diseases that are neurological. So very, very fascinating, in my opinion. Does not fucking matter. It's the dumbest argument I've ever heard, okay? In the World War, there was a machine called the Enigma machine, but nobody uses it anymore, right? Security is this intertwining threat and remediation dance. And really, when you look at it, quantum computing is going to bring about completely new forms of security. a quantum internet where we're using entangled particles to communicate. So by trying to hack you and observe that, just doing that function, it decoheres and I don't see anything, are going to be massively popular. Not just that, but think of the ability to protect your personal data using essentially atomic particles from nature. It's going to be so much more advanced, it's going to be so much better. Everybody that talks about quantum computing and talks about how it's going to break cryptography, all cryptography has been broken. Now, there are real world threats. The threat is not that it breaks the password to your OnlyFans account. The threat is that there were secrets stolen by governments all over the world 20 years ago, 30 years ago, built with lesser encryption. And those things, you store it now, decrypt it later, that will come into play as quantum computers give them the ability to break those older encryption methods and potentially find horrifying things like nuclear secrets or biological warfare things, et cetera, et cetera. So very, very important. Optimizing everything from schedules of trains to Frankfurt Airport, where they optimized 278 gates and hundreds of thousands of people that flow through there on a daily basis. Optimization is really powerful, it's really important, and it's not as exciting as drug discovery or the encryption, but it's where you can use quantum computers today effectively and efficiently to improve basically everything from how a package shows up at your doorstep to the autonomous route of a Waymo car in California. They used supercomputers to do weather forecasting and its effects on everything from shipping to product availability, all of those things and more. I don't know exactly what they do. I don't work at a hedge fund. But of artificial intelligence I'm personally looking at, there's AI, what we have today, that would be typeface AI, ChatGPT, Script, all of these different programs. And the future is things, what they call a AGI, an artificial general intelligence. And that's exciting. It would be able to effectively replicate you or I, but beyond that is a super intelligence. And the thing that I'm looking forward to in the future is a quantum super intelligence. And if we are lucky enough to get to that point and create a quantum super intelligence, that would in theory be the last thing we ever invented as a species. Because after that, it would invent everything. Now obviously, that's a pretty far-reaching vision, and obviously you might think that's one of those things that's 100 years away. But yesterday, ChatGPT was released, right? Version 4. Version 3 wasn't released that long ago, and if you look at the comparison of the size of the large language model it has, at the speed and efficiency, hint, they still need to work on the servers because it's down right now as I give this talk, that are too complex or too on Alexa. Improved decision making that we use it for. I use it every day in various formats to give me ideas. I use it for decision making as inspiration. I use it to give me alternatives I probably wouldn't have thought of or might not have thought of. I mean, I'll tell you right now, in preparing this talk, which we'll talk about at the end, there would have been a dozen things I would have forgotten to say, things I would have forgotten to even include. And it's super, super exciting that I have this tool that can effectively be like the greatest assistant in the world and a secondary brain, if you will, right? So you have your head, that's your brain, they say your gut's your second brain, and now you have a third brain, which is your AI or your ChatGPT or whatever your flavor is. Obviously there's image classification in that. If you run a photo site and you're pulling images, if you want to compare to see if someone stole your image, if you want to classify bits of data, molecular structures that you're looking at, etc., there are tons of classification techniques that you can use. And one of the things that we haven't talked about yet is education and the impact of artificial intelligence. How many of you think that English classes will be around in 5 years, or at least the exams? 3 of you. I think that schools are banning AI for use. Different websites, even Stack Overflow, said we're not going to allow AI answers generated. So education will be one of the first things impacted by these technologies and already being impacted. I doubt that anybody writing an essay on the poetry of Robert Frost is writing that essay today. All right? I just doubt that's unrealistic for anybody to think that kids aren't doing that right now today. Will be in the future, and I am going to cover these But I think it's really important that we look at the positive impacts and we focus on it. I feel like there's so much fear and uncertainty and doubt in the world today, and I'm sick of it. I don't know the positive things, but it would be remiss not to mention that we are building technologies that could easily get outside of our control. If we build a thinking machine, we don't necessarily know what it might think of us, okay? We don't know how it would react. And, you know, of course, you've seen a lot of these futures. The biggest one is the Terminator. I don't need you anymore. It's going to kill us all, right? The Matrix, the Animatrix, the predecessor to the Matrix, told the story of us and then AI becoming so advanced that we isolated it on an island. And when we isolated it on the island, it became the world's largest global economy. And then eventually, tried to kill us. So this is realistic, maybe for a science fiction writer. I don't think it's that realistic, and I'll tell you why. AI like a child, and it learning. You know, everybody worries about bias, and we'll talk about that in a minute, and all of these things, but how do we know that it won't be smart enough to say, I don't believe you. I don't share your bias. I don't share your outlooks. And that scares a lot of people, but I look at it in a very hopeful, positive nature of maybe it would be able to say, you know, that's pretty racist, and that's pretty sexist, and for me at my age now, that's pretty ageist. So, you know, I have a positive outlook on this future. Kind of iRobot vision. So this is the only way to break the 3 rules of robotics, or translate them a different way, is that the AI says, you know what, you guys war against yourselves, you're just children. And so we're gonna have to take care of you. And now that does tie into the last slide, because if you've seen that movie or read that book, you know, one way to take care of you is, we're gonna have to sacrifice a few of you, right? Get rid of all the troublemakers. And this is really, really interesting because I wonder about an alternative to this vision. I wonder about an alternative in where unemployment in 2060, thanks to quantum computing and AI. And we can take more of a Gene Roddenberry look where we live in a utopian society where money is not a thing, where we can go and pursue all of our wildest dreams, all right? But maybe we do that within limits of this cage we see here on the screen, and we might not have as much freedoms as we want. I think you would have to sacrifice them in that scenario. That we would have people who have access to AI and quantum and people who don't. All right, and this could be a very big thing that we should all be aware about. It's StrangeWorks. We're on a mission of computing and artificial intelligence so that everybody can take advantage of it, to remove the barriers, make it more abstraction layers, things like that. But we're not the only ones, and I hope that over the next 2 years we'll see a lot more companies trying to do that and make sure that these technologies are widely available and evenly distributed across our societies globally. That I hear about all the time. Just yesterday, someone asked me if on the talk I was going to talk about how AI was going to take their job. They were a lawyer. I wish it would take their job. Some of them are friends. I find them slightly annoying. But, maybe not. But, what jobs will it take? Well, if you go back to the 1980s, bank tellers were protesting in the streets with picket signs against a new technological innovation called the ATM. And they said, the ATM is going to take our jobs, right? And it didn't. You go to a bank today, they're still bank tellers. They just don't do the mundane task of counting out money. They service loans. They give you customer service. They help you get access back to your online banking account when you inevitably forget that password. So I think it will affect jobs, it will affect employment, but I don't think it will get rid of everything, and I think it will create new opportunities. If we look back historically on technological innovations, from the printing press, taking people that write stuff on stone tablets out of business, that worked out okay, right? To the bank teller example, into the future, right now, what is the big debate? Artists, musicians, artists, very worried about AI. You look at things like Midjourney and DALL-E, and you think, wow, that's insane. That is absolutely going to put me out of work. Or maybe it's going to let you prototype ideas at 1,000,000 times the speed you would have. And maybe your job it's not gone, it just changes slightly. My job in 1993 was burning these things called CD-ROMs for events like South by and places. And that doesn't exist anymore. But it also didn't kill my career. I'm fortunately not unemployed, unless you ask my wife. She calls this my sci-fi company. You know, it's going to affect things, but I don't think it's going to cause mass unemployment. And I do think there's a potential future in where people don't have to work, and people can just be people. They can pursue, you know, you want to play violin, you want to go explore. And by the way, if we talk about going to Mars, which we do every day in the press, we're going to need quantum AI to get there. And that's going to provide completely new opportunities, completely new jobs none of us have even dreamed of. And so I don't think the future is that scary. I don't worry about that. That could be China has a new economy, or we do, or France, or Germany, Great Britain. It doesn't matter. But countries all over the world are desperately trying to beat everybody else to an artificial intelligence that is an AGI or a superintelligence, to a quantum computer that has all of the qubits. Here we talk about 1,000,000 qubit, 2,000,000 qubit machines more powerful than every computational device on Earth presently, including all of our supercomputers. So it's a big race, and I think economic disruption, that's one I'll give to the naysayers. That is absolutely something. Think about a startup, and we're going to give an example later. And you want to start a new company, and you need to set up servers. You have AWS and all now. We've advanced so far in the last 20 years. When I was a kid, I used to have to cut UPC codes out of cereal boxes. And I would take them to a physical email called a post office, and I would drop them in there, and weeks later I would get a part. And today you can take a credit card, and you know, somebody gives you a computer and server power, et cetera, et cetera. This is improve the economy. But this next phase, now I can create stuff where I don't need to know how to code, or I don't need to know how to make graphics, or I don't need to how to write a sales stuff or a presentation or whatever, and I can lean on these tools. This will give an entire new class of people the abilities that were held only by corporations or groups or teams of people. An individual now can do the work of 10 or 20 or 100 people is where I am most excited. Again, I tend to not buy into, Elon or whoever saying, the robots are going to kill us and they all get control. When you see examples in the media of AIs going awry, I believe Facebook had one that said the AI started making up its own language. I think that you see all of these other things. Now, with what we're seeing in the last 3 months, maybe this is possible, and I certainly think so. Another point to remember. Really is important. I look at this for the political system. I think of the laws that are passed that have little earmarks in them that are completely unrelated to the law, and none of us have pages. Imagine now having an artificial intelligence be able to read that for you in seconds and tell you, this is related to what the law is, and here's all of the other stuff that is completely unrelated. And being able to say, well, now I can call my representative and say, hey, I don't want to support this bill because I support this thing, but I just don't support the subsidies for X, Y, or Z, or the new changes in whatever laws. This is super, super important. And I think AI will allow you as an individual to be more active in the political system and to hold your leaders accountable for the actions that they take. Because right now, most of these laws are written by lawyers. They're very complex. You know how I feel about lawyers. And I think, this would be a really good thing. This is a super, super positive outlet. Is working on ways to do better. Now, of course, they see a market that'll go away, but it's so much more complex than that. When I looked at it years ago, I realized that we want to get rid of damage we're doing to the planet. These batteries are incredibly damaging. It also, by the way, is one piece of a much larger puzzle. The TV monitors I'm using for the speech in front of me, the screens, this side of the stage, these are all based on petroleum-based products. So we have a lot of work to do in this area, and we need not just artificial intelligence, but quantum computing to be able to do those. Some great examples. And if you think about it, it's not just the drone I have in this image, it is also vertical farming and drones and automated farming, so that we can generate more food and feed more people on this planet. Specifically, think about it. I hear one small laugh. But, you guys may not have heard, but recently, our financial system. Maybe if we had more autonomous, agents watching transactions, watching leverage, so that you didn't let somebody be leveraged 185 to 1. We could prevent some of the financial collapses, some of the things that we've had go on. Because I was asked, and this is not part of what I'm reading, if we could do Q&A. Apparently a lot of people have questions, so we're going to try to save enough time to do some Q&A. I am pushing and evangelizing the most. It is very important that we consider the ethical and social implications of not just quantum computing and intelligence to ensure that it's used for the benefit of humanity and not to the detriment. And so where does that start? And to me, that starts with the kids. Our children are the people most at risk in this technological change. They are the ones that will be exposed. They are the ones that will have to grow up in this world that is being created by these new technologies that are advancing so fast. And I believe that the focus of on these children should be not on what purpose will they have, not what our parents said, what kind of job are you gonna have? You're 19, are you gonna get a job? I heard that, I was a musician at 19. But for the purpose goes away, and it's about following their passion and using these tools and using these systems to follow that passion and to be not only a creative force, but to be able to sustain their own livelihood with that in whatever one of these futures, utopian, dystopian, or otherwise. I believe in my heart of hearts that quantum computing and AI will change computing more by 2030, just 7 years away, than has changed its entire existence. This will be a wonderful thing. I believe it will be a lot of disruption. I believe that if we prepare for it now and stop thinking about take a wait and see attitude to when these things become available, we will be all the better for it. Probably won't hit 1 million qubits by 2030. Might. There are people who say they will. They've got predictions on 2028, 2029 from a lot of people. But I'm not sure that they will, and I don't think they have to. They're noisy right now, so it's hard to get answers out of them. They decohere really fast in a lot of cases. And just fixing those two things with the number of qubits we have today or in the near future, 1,200, 1,000, 5,000, 5,000, 6,000, 10,000, will be more power than we've ever had in computing. And I predict that we will have a problem programming these computers beyond the ability of a developer to program a system with 1 million qubits. And if you look at many of the circuit gates and things available today, very small numbers of bits. Nobody's using 100 or 1,000 or 1,200. So, I think that's gonna happen. I think it happens by 2030. I also, GI by 2035. Maybe much faster. And the reason I think that is because if you take the entire evolution of our compute technology since the invention of the integrated circuit, 1959 to today, we will do 10 times that, 100 times that advancement before 2030. Again, I harken back to ChatGPT and look at how much larger the language model was in 4 than 3, how much it's learning. 100 million people signed up for that in the first 60 days. And when you're inputting stuff and asking questions, you are teaching that system. You are teaching, okay, another important point, me, disruption. There's a very good book called The Day AI Becomes God by Tetsuya Matsumoto. It was a friend of mine, and when I first read it, I don't think I understood it. This book talks about the effects of artificial intelligence on the political systems, on the way we rule, on the way we interact with other humans, hire, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that we will be using more and more artificial intelligence, not just in the mundane task like screening resumes or building ads, but in really discovering completely new things. And that is why I think these two technologies are the future of scientific discovery. More about our oceans and our planet and our solar system and our universe than we have ever discovered in the history of our species. It's super, now I see some questions already popping up. Please add any questions that you have. That is spooking me. Remember that one too. We're going to be able to, say anything. So we know quantum computing is here, AI is here, it is advancing much faster than we could have ever anticipated in my mind. And we know that we need to be stewards of these technologies, and we need to interplay with their stewardship of our world, because we will be giving control of systems, we already do, over to machines. And so it's very, very important to think about the unintended consequences of our actions. We can no longer move fast and break things. We have to think very methodically about what we're creating, what we're releasing into the world, who we're letting have access to it, et cetera, to you. And then we're gonna go through, please keep them coming. I'm kind of taking a look at them. We have an awesome new mascot at Strangeworks, Shirley Cat. And how many of you got this? It's got a little fantasy article about Shirley Cat here. It's got this overview of my talk, which is awesome, and I appreciate everyone coming. And then it's got this quiz, some prizes. So if you guys open up to that page, these prizes exist. We're going to give these away. Just as much as I've written, printed, the artwork was made, and we brought them here to give away to you today. This product, although we call it a co-creation, is almost entirely made up using artificial intelligence. So, I was writing a blog called Superposition, quantum computing, and I was super happy about it, called Fortune and Glory, Kid, Fortune and Glory, stealing from the Indiana Jones line. And I said, I'm gonna start this company, I'm gonna launch it at South by, and I'm gonna, kind of come back. And I said on March 13th, 2018, my blog would return. Little 2-week break so I could work on the keynote. Newsflash, it never returned. So for 5 years, I received tons of hate mail and inquiries as to when I would start writing that again. And this would be really hard, hang on with the, David Hansen, where are you? Where did you go? Right over here from Big Human. And David and I have been collaborating, and this morning, we took an AI we've been experimenting with, and let me find my notes here, and we published a completely new Whurley.com. And since this morning, it has posted how many blogs? Hundreds of blogs, written almost indistinguishable from me, sorry, I need my notes again, all the previous writings into a model, combining it with ChatGPT and Google Trends to effectively recreate what I would have done for the last 5 years and publish it as if it had always been there. And that all happened like literally in the last couple of hours. So think about that. That's incredible. If you go to Whurley.com, just know that it could break on you, but it's going to be changing a lot. It will probably end up publishing almost 1,000 of these. That is incredible. I love them. That was a weird choice of words, David. And I'm super, super excited and hope that you will read them and love them too. That's incredible. Think about that capability. Now, people worry about it going off. You read about, different AIs talking about everything from, World Evening News. It didn't do any of that. More important, right, a secondary part of this engine that will translate these logs into other languages flawlessly. I've done a couple of experiments, and it looks to me/us, another point to remember, that will all work out. Slides, to these graphics, to the speech that I'm reading now was created by generative AI. If you noticed at the first of the talk, really, and I have definitely fucked up several times because this is the first time in my life I've read from a teleprompter, which is what I'm doing now. See? And it says weird things like me/us and some of the points I pointed out. But overall, I would say that this worked out pretty damn well, considering that I told my team about it. Oops, one more slide. We're gonna answer your questions. Yeah, thanks. I'm gonna do this. I told my team about it about 24 hours ago. I said, "How's the keynote going?" And I said, "Have I got an idea for you?" And we're off script now, by the way, just for record. I sound like a much better presenter because I can just talk. I clearly could never be a newscaster. That's what we just learned today. That's Casey, my chief creative officer. He has a look a lot though, so that's not new. Nicole never has a look, who's over here in the audience. She and Ada are the ones who created the publication you're holding. Ada down there in the lower corner. And I sprung this on them. And it was a horrible thing to do. And also, if you went and saw this talk on the South by Southwest site, this all started with a prompt. I said, write a South by Southwest abstract, 800 words. Here's the concept, here's the title. I gave it a few points. South by Southwest website was created by GPT-3. And so I took that and I submitted it. I didn't tell you, Forrest, until last night. I know. Last time I've ever spoken at South by. But it was amazing because it generated that, and then I submitted it, and then I just waited until the last minute. And then I continued the conversation, and I said, now take that abstract and give me the outline of a presentation. And it wrote an outline that was really, really good, but it wasn't good enough. I said, I don't like this part of it. What if we included that? And it rewrote it, and it rewrote it, and it built the outline of the presentation that you just saw today. And then I said, you know what? I'm gonna spring it on the art team, make a bunch of slides using generative AI, and they did. It was awesome. But then last night, night before last, I did the abstract. It's doing all of the art and the slides. Why can't it just put words in my mouth too? And so I did it all in ChatGPT-3, and then 4 was released yesterday, so I redid all of it. And as you saw, there were several little tiny things. Most of those are not on the AI. Almost all of those are on me. I didn't like the me/us thing or the love thing. It was a weird way to talk about my blog. But outside of that, I would say it did a pretty astoundingly good job of, in hours, creating every single aspect of the presentation you just saw. And I hope that blows your mind, because I have to tell you, doing it, it blew my mind. And it was incredible. I'm never writing a presentation that I give. Kidding. Honestly, right now when I get off, I'm gonna go have a drink and be like, I'm never doing that again. I have never been nervous on stage. I've been anxious this entire time beyond what you could imagine, because I didn't even realize how hard it would be to read from that teleprompter. But with that said, I'm a little ahead of schedule. We got 16 minutes, not 15, to reach artificial general intelligence. Is quantum computing really required to achieve AGI? This is a debate in both communities. I believe this for a couple of reasons. One, I believe AI will start generating more algorithms that are beyond the scope of our classical computers, that will need quantum computers to process some of the stuff it asks us to do. So I think so. Ram asked, how can we as individuals prepare for quantum computing? Well, great news. There are tons of open source frameworks you can go check out now. There's Amazon Bracket. there's IBM Q, there's Azure Quantum, and of course StrangeWorks today released our new platform where you can go and play with all of these things and actually build the algorithms. So check that out, please. Flavio asked an amazing philosophical question, and I think that perhaps Flavio is an AI. Is it a real person? Because that sounds like something a machine would say. But I don't know. That's the honest answer. Mario asked, what action should we take to ensure that this technology is used to reduce global economic and social inequality instead of increasing it? Understanding the law of unintended consequences and making sure in all of our scientific endeavors that we think about all of the other possibilities that would happen. That can be really hard, but here's the great news. You can now use AI to think of all of those other things. In fact, for the talk, it's what made up the Terminator 1000 and all of those other references for the slides. So you can use these things to really work it out. When do we get an actual quantum computer in our phone? Look, I've seen people in the quantum industry talk about desktop quantum computers. You have it in your phone now. Google invested in quantum computing because it's great for search, using Grover search algorithms and other applications. So it won't be a quantum phone, but you're going to be using these resources, already using them in some cases, via your phone. So think of your phone as an endpoint device. It's not going to be a quantum computer, it's going to access it all the time. Possibility of time travel with quantum computing. What can you add to that? Not much. They are. But if you watch the quantum news this week, and the article is going to be showing up on the blog, I'm sure, they're talking about opening up wormhole and portals to other dimensions and stuff. This is beyond my technical expertise, I am sorry. But I don't think that it will bring time travel. I do think it will bring time travel in the form of, I didn't write any of this shit, and when I did the keynote in 2018, I spent like 9 weeks working on this stuff. So I love it. Somebody anonymous, should we develop in our children's education? This is great. I think we should have our kids exposed to these things as much as possible. A lot of parents, they limit their kids from using an iPad instead of limiting what their kids can do on an iPad, right? And there's a big difference there. Taking the tech completely away from a child, that gives that child, honestly, a shackle to prevent them from keeping up with their peers. Now, you don't want them watching YouTube videos or limiting stuff. You can do that with that technology. So I think exposing people to that, children to that technology, and making sure that we keep them exposed, is very, very important. Potential quantum supercomputer, how does the server impact its ability to run or fail? So this is really interesting. The quantum computers work completely differently. They use a lot less power, but they will have bus problems. There will be input-output issues. I believe they'll have all the same issues as a mainframe, and I think those will get solved over the time. I don't think that's going to be a big issue in the future. In building AI and quantum optimization of quantum, won't that really speed things up? Yes. When I talked earlier in the thing it wrote, which is not accurate, it said 1959 to now, I say 1963 to 2023, that same time of technological evolution will be compressed into the next 10 years. So I do believe that those two will interact, and that AI will help build better quantum computers, and quantum computers will help run bigger algorithms that AI builds, and it will be a back and forth that will really advance faster than any technology we've ever seen. Anonymous, no outlook on the future of AI. Can you comment on the work of AI safety researchers? There's a great guy here in town, Scott Aronson, who is taking a break from quantum to go work with OpenAI on ethics. And there is also a guy, Nick Ferreira, at AeroQ, who started a quantum ethics group. So I think when you look at it, I think that this work is super important to building that positive future that I talked about. I think we have to be looking at these things. We have to be debating them. It has never been so important to really constructively build together collaboratively as a community any technology in the history of mankind. Future, how do you imagine that? It seems unavoidable. I agree. Gene Roddenberry wrote all about this, right? Star Trek, okay? That is his utopian future. I think it would be wonderful. You don't need money, you can just replicate anything you want. But there's also a lot of other stuff that comes with that and exploring the solar system. Problems, errors need to be eliminated. How confident are you error correction / elimination is achievable in a 10-year scope? I think it's achievable in a 2-year scope. I already know everyone working on error correction and on making these machines stay coherent a lot longer, and I think the progress has been phenomenal in the last 5 years. So I don't think that's 10 years away. Start using molecular compute, we're going to be able to improve seeds, do things. I'm not talking about genetically modifying them, just how we handle them, the paths when we plant, the weather forecasting, all of those things we mentioned up there. Those are very, very relevant to this here. Mutations going on in the brain at room temperature. Has biology tapped into quantum computing? Okay, super fascinating. So this is a split between neuroscientists. Some neuroscientists believe that the brain's quantum mechanical, some don't. I do. So if you want to build an AI, you need a quantum mechanical system to build it on top of. But there's something different in that area, and that's called organoids, which is where we grow lab-grown organs and grow a lab-grown brain and use the little synapses as compute surface. That's super, super fascinating. Why are you so optimistic when there's so much evidence of bad intent in the world? One, it's in my nature, but two, because an AI didn't create it, we did. All of the fear, all the uncertainty, all the doubt, we are making up, and we're not spending enough time on the positive. And if you think about Vicky and iRobot, it's a totally plausible future. But 3 bad outcomes, people. It kills us all, it enslaves us, it destroys the way all of our economy and things work. Millions of amazing outcomes. Not curing disease, better drug discovery, but eliminating disease, right? Not better battery technology, but completely new forms of travel. So I'm positive because I think there's more positive evidence than negative. I think in the popular media, it is really easy to get clicks on your website or viewers if you talk about it's all gonna crash, right? We react really well to that. What you say is the mental and human impact of people not having the need to work anymore. So this is interesting because I do, and I've talked to several clinical psychologists about this, I do think there could be a lot of depressed people if they don't know what they want to do. If you think of people who are lost, I think it can really affect teenagers who are at a point in their life where they don't know what they want to do, but also if you grew up in that world, you might have a completely different view of the world than I have. You talk like the boomer thing, and I'm Gen X, clearly the best generation, just kidding. But my view of the world is different, their view of the world will be different. So, but I worry about depression and things like that in that case. To tell what's real or what's not. This is interesting because we've already seen deep fakes, all these other image manipulations, voice manipulations. Adobe had a product years ago that they launched that for some reason they pulled from the market. They took an actor and they took a little bit of audio from him, and he said, I'm paraphrasing something like, I came in the house and I kissed my wife and I pet my dog. And they literally cut and paste the words in a different order, and he sounded perfectly. He said, I came in the house and I pet my wife and I kissed my dog. So that's a big concern. It's a really, really big concern. The world's politics, given the lack of governance we're capable of. This is exactly what a new book I'm working on is on. It's also Go Read the Day AI Becomes God, because it's a phenomenal look at exactly that situation by someone who has spent far more time looking at it. I'm just now looking at it. It's more sustainable than a supercomputer. It uses a fraction of the energy. It's actually a pro and a plus for the environment, not a negative. Mario, with the rise, I think the autocracies will be able to stay ahead of their people and maintain indefinite control. No, I don't. I think technology is at a stage where it's going to advance so fast that it will be impossible for regulators to keep up with it. J.J. Abrams had a show called Almost Human that was kind of about this, where all the criminal orgs and everybody had more advanced technology in the police departments and the armies. That is a very real, very scary, very potential future for us. Brains work. I was dropped on my head with a kid. Your brain has all of its folds. All the electrical patterns are different from you to me to her. It doesn't matter. I think that they will provide processing power and obviously information if you have that kind of matrix-like plug it in and like karate future. That is actually a future I think is extremely far away. Now, could we put something in a brain and help with Parkinson's? Absolutely. Could we do other stuff? Yes. But if you're telling me you know how to write information to a human's brain and program them, I would like to meet with you after this. I will invest today. Okay. Talked about, I don't think it matters, because as the computers are getting faster and more powerful, we're not necessarily using that computational ability yet. It's part of what I think we need AI for. Used for the slides and pictures. We're going to post a blog post on that. We used a dozen across this whole thing, and I'll be happy to write a long blog post and put links to them and even include some of the prompts and stuff we did. I'm going to tell you, I'm definitely going to get David's AI to help me write that, and it's probably going to be maybe I'll try to do it in the next couple of weeks. That is a book by Neil Bostrom called Superintelligence, which is about strategies for exactly that. And you list out how you can have oracles and agents and all the different various things, including one of the most interesting things in the book is, would an AI, where you put all the limits in, manipulate a human, kind of like an ex machina, to do things so that it could then escape those bounds that we put on it? Yes, I don't know that we need to. I think if we let it soak up all the information, I really feel like it's going to come to different conclusions than we think it will. Imagine you're in 2030. What do you add on to this session? Wow, that's a great one. Hugh, I could come back in 2030. I think I would add actual real-world examples of a lot of the things that we today, and some of you, I think, are completely futuristic, where you say, hey, you thought that was 100 years away, and it's happened. So I'd probably talk about that kind of reality of the time between everywhere but here. Because that is a management problem, not a compute problem. But it'll prove that it'll be used for optimization, it'll be used for new ways of power generation, et cetera, et cetera. Do you think we're going to have AIs that perform quality control on the resultant fruit? Yes, absolutely. In fact, in doing this talk, I used 3 AIs based on 2 different engines to kind of refine the talk. And then I screwed it all up with the teleprompter. But I did that, and you can do that in some forms today, and I think we'll have more and more of those. And then will AIs just talk to each other in the future? Yes, and I do believe there is the potential for an AI war. A war not between humans, but between compute platforms that want to garner the favor of, or the control of, et cetera, of humans. 3 seconds left. I'm just going to say thank you very much, everyone, especially those who said